ADR. Promoting dialogue. It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 o'clock in Abuja. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa, Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Portuguese judicial police detain close associate of Guinea-Bissau's ex-president Embalo with €5 million. Liberian Senate staffers protest low wages with calls for salary standardization.
Enough is enough. We are demanding an increment. We are demanding a standardization of our salaries and wages.
Police in Benin detained former president's son, Chabi Yayi, amid post-coup crackdown. ECOWAS endorses Ghana's President Mahama as West Africa's sole candidate for African Union Chairmanship 2027.
President Mahama deserves this community support. That's one thing. We all know the competence of President Mahama.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast this evening. A close associate of former Guinea-Bissau President Umaro Sissoko Embalo is currently detained by the Portuguese Judicial Police in Lisbon. The suspect, Tito Gomes Fernandes, was arrested at Lisbon's Figo Maduro Military Airport on Sunday, while he was found in possession of approximately €5 million in cash. Tito Gomes Fernandes, widely recognized as Embalo's right-hand man, is facing charges of smuggling and money laundering. Sankula Janko tells us more.
The operation was carried out by the judicial police in collaboration with the Portuguese tax authorities following an anonymous tip. During the police search at the airport, they discovered €5 million in cash hidden in Fernandez's luggage. Authorities noted that the aircraft, which arrived from Guinea-Bissau, was declared a military flight and was scheduled to land at Beja Airport. However, the judicial police stated that the actual destination and purpose of the flight differed from what was communicated to the aviation authorities. According to media reports close to the investigation, Sissoko Embalo's wife was also on board the aircraft but was not arrested. Tito Gomes Fernandes is set to appear before a judge for initial questioning. The arrest occurred amid political instability in Guinea-Bissau following the military coup on November 26 that ousted Omaro Sissoko Embalo. Currently, the ousted president remains in exile in the Republic of Congo.
Sankula Janko with that report. Elsewhere in Benin, Jabi Yayi, son of former President Boni Yayi, has been placed in police custody after being arrested at his home in the early hours of Sunday. Authorities have not disclosed the reasons for his arrest. Jabi Yayi also serves as the National Secretary for External Relations of the opposition party, the Democrats. His detention comes exactly 1 week after the failed military coup attempt in the country. Details in this report with the more edit.
Security tensions continue to rise in Benin following last week's failed military coup. At about 2 a.m. on Sunday, men in military uniforms surrounded the residence of Chabi George's Najem Yayi before arresting him. A search of the property immediately followed. Chabi Yayi, who serves as the National Secretary for External Relations of the opposition party, the Democrats, was taken to the headquarters of the Judicial Police in Cotonou, where his lawyers joined him later in the day for questioning. For now, officials have provided no explanation for his arrest. The opposition has reacted sharply. In a statement, the Democrats described the arrest as an abduction and demanded his immediate release, alleging political intimidation in the wake of the coup attempt. His attention adds to a wave of arrests sweeping across the country. On Friday, another opposition figure, Kandide Azanai, former minister delegate for defense, was also taken into custody. His party, Restore Hope, has since denied reports claiming he has been released. Authorities have additionally issued international arrest warrants, including one for prominent activist Kemi Seba, as the government widens its crackdown linked to the failed coup.
Our Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Sule's report, voiced by Imo Edit. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has rejected the transitional charter announced by Guinea-Bissau's military rulers and calls for a rapid return to constitutional order. At the bloc's 68th Ordinary Summit held in Abuja on Sunday, ECOWAS leaders also demanded the immediate release of all political detainees, including opposition figures, and called for an inclusive and short transitional period in Bissau. The regional powerhouse warned that targeted sanctions would be imposed on those obstructing the process. As Francis Boniface reports, regional leaders gathered for the summit on the heels of a recent attempted coup in Benin and diverse challenges confronting the sub-region.
Over the past 5 years, West and Central Africa have witnessed a surge in military coups, with the 9th occurring in Guinea-Bissau on November 26. The trend has deepened concerns about democratic backsliding in a region already strained by persistent insecurity and political instability. Speaking on the subject, Dr. Omar Alieu Toure, president of the ECOWAS Commission, reiterated the bloc's zero tolerance for unconstitutional changes of government. He noted that elections held on November 23 in Bissau were judged free and transparent by ECOWAS observers, the African Union, and the Community of Portuguese language countries, and therefore called for a swift return to constitutional rule. ECOWAS chairperson and Sierra Leonean President Julius Maada Bio, already in talks with the junta, warns that failure to comply with the bloc's demands would result in targeted sanctions. Maada Bio, beyond the coups, highlighted critical issues the West African sub-region faces, urging coordinated efforts and swift response.
Terrorist networks continue to exploit fragility and attempt to expand their influence. Our response must therefore be united and uncompromising. Security is not only a military obligation, it is a human imperative, essential for protecting families, livelihoods, and the dignity of our citizens. We must strengthen collective action to ease the movement of our people, deepen regional trade, stimulate tourism, and strengthen the social and economic ties that define our community.
Political instability and rising insecurity dominated discussions at the 68th Ordinary Session of the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government.
Francis Boniface with that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We're continuing with more ECOWAS-related developments as authorities of heads of state and government has unanimously endorsed Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama as West Africa's sole candidate for the African Union chairmanship in 2027. The approval follows an earlier unanimous recommendation by the bloc's foreign affairs ministers at a summit held in Abuja. ECOWAS says the decision reflects a strong confidence in President Mahama's diplomatic experience, particularly his roles in mediation, peace building, and regional integration. President of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Alieu Toure, addressed journalists after the summit at the presidential villa in Abuja.
The authority has also decided to support Ghana's candidature for the chairmanship of the African Union for the year 2027. President Mahama deserves this community support. That's one thing. We all know the competence of President Mahama, and the leaders have full confidence in him to represent West Africa at that in that role.
President of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Alieu Toure. Meanwhile, Senegal takes over the reign of the ECOWAS Commission presidency. A coalition of unpaid nurses and midwives under the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association is demanding the immediate payment of salary arrears. The nurses complained that they worked continuously for 12 months across public health facilities but were paid for just a single month, a situation they describe as cruel and demoralizing. The group, accusing the Health Ministry of broken promises and selective payments, says the financial neglect is killing their morale and will undermine patients' care nationwide. Stephen Takia, the leader of the coalition, disclosed that about 300 of its members did not receive even a single month's salary, and their status remains unclear. He expressed a fear that the situation could worsen as the extended financial clearance for their employment is set to expire on December 31, 2025. Elsewhere, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has approved a fresh disbursement of about $38 million to the Gambia. This approval provides a new financing support as the country records a strong economic growth while pressing ahead with fiscal reforms and climate resilience efforts. The decision follows the completion of the fourth review under the IMF Extended Credit Facility and the first review under the Resilience and Sustainability Facility. Of the total amount approved, around $70 million comes from the ECF, which was approved in January 2024. WADR's Banjul correspondent Sandona Mendy reports.
This brings total disbursements under the ECF program to about $68 million. The remaining $21.24 million is from the RSF, approved in June 2025, and it's aimed at strengthening the Gambia's capacity to cope with climate-related shocks. The IMF says the Gambia's economic performance remains strong. The GDP is projected to grow by 6% in 2025, driven mainly by agriculture, construction, and tourism. Inflation has continued to slow, easing to about 7% by October, reflecting tighter monetary policy and a decline in global price pressures. IMF Deputy Managing Director Boli said the outlook highlights the need for stronger domestic revenue mobilization, controlled public spending, and sustained fiscal consolidation to protect debt sustainability, even as the government increases involvement in social services and infrastructure. Key government priorities include improving tax administration and introducing a carbon-based fuel excise duty in 2026 to boost domestic revenue. Mr. Lee said the authorities remain committed to meeting their 2025 fiscal targets, despite delays in anticipated financing from Africa 50, an infrastructure investment platform. The Resilience and Sustainability Facility will support reforms to strengthen climate policy frameworks and help mobilize green financing, an urgent need for the Gambia, which is highly vulnerable to climate shocks and natural disaster. Despite the generally positive outlook, the IMF warned that downside risks persist, particularly from external shocks that could affect growth and strain public finances. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Away from Banjul, the previous visits of Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko to the United Arab Emirates have finally paid off. Abu Dhabi and Dakar have signed 10 cooperation agreements covering several sectors. This took place during a working visit by a large Emirati delegation to Senegal. Abdullahi Hassan completes the story.
These agreements cover key sectors including energy, mining, health, agriculture, housing, digital technology and infrastructure. Among the announced projects are the strengthening of Senegal's gas network, the construction of a 200-megawatt solar power plant, the development of an iron ore mine, the creation of a natural gold trading post, and the establishment of a generic drug manufacturing plant. The delegation from the United Arab Emirates UAE was received by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and subsequently met with Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, who highlighted the priorities of the Senegal 2050 vision and the country's economic and geostrategic advantages. These agreements reflect the two countries' commitment to deepening cooperation focused on investment, innovation, and sustainable development. This visit follows on President Bassirou Diomaye Faye's trip to Abu Dhabi in December 2024 and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko's visit last September.
Abdullahi Hassan Fight, that report. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Portuguese judicial police detain close associate of Guinea-Bissau's ex-president Embalo with €5 million. Liberian Senate staffers protested low wages with calls for salary standardization. Police in Benin detained former president's son, Chabi Yayi, amid post-coup crackdown. ECOWAS endorses Ghana's President Mahama's West Africa sole candidate for African Union Chairmanship 2027. Still ahead in the news, we have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for being with us. We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Let's now take you to Nigeria, where opposition political leaders have raised fresh concerns over what they describe as growing threats to the country's multi-party democracy, while accusing the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of weaponizing state institutions to intimidate and weaken opposition forces. In a joint statement issued on Sunday, the leaders warned that the trend, if unchecked, could destabilize Nigeria's democratic system and deepen public distrust ahead of the 2027 general elections. WADR's Usma Umar reports.
In a strongly worded press statement on Sunday, the leaders accused the federal government of using agencies such as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the police, and the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission to selectively target opposition figures, while alleged infractions involving members of the ruling party are, in their view, ignored or treated with leniency. They warned that recent defections of opposition governors to the ruling party have heightened public suspicion that anti-corruption investigations are being used as tools of political pressure rather than instruments of accountability. The opposition figures argued that such practices undermine public confidence in the fight against corruption and pose a direct threat to democratic pluralism, particularly at a time of growing social and economic discontent across the country. As part of their demands, the leaders called for the immediate depoliticization of the EFCC and returned to what they described as its statutory mandate of impartial prevention and prosecution of economic crimes. They also proposed embedding anti-graft operatives directly into government payment and expenditure processes at federal, state and local government levels as a preventive measure against corruption. In addition, the group demanded the establishment of an independent review body to examine public accounts of all tiers of government from 2015 to 2025, insisting that such a process would expose selective prosecution and strengthen institutional transparency. Signed by former Senate President David Mark, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, Bode George, and other senior political figures, the statement calls on Nigerians and the international community to remain vigilant in defense of democracy. The opposition leaders warned that silencing dissent and weakening opposition parties could push the country toward a de facto one-party state, a development they say will be dangerous for Nigeria and the wider West African sub-region. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Elsewhere in Liberia, members of the Senate Staffers Association are demanding an increase in their salaries and benefits. During a demonstration earlier Monday, the aggrieved staffers expressed the need for standardizing their salary structure. They complained of receiving low salaries, among other challenges. They threatened to sustain their call until their demands are addressed. This is happening as the legislature is carrying out sectorial hearings into the 2026 national budget set at $1.2 billion. Roosevelt Tule is a member of the Liberian Senate Staffers Association.
We are protesting because we are disappointed in the Liberian Senate. As Liberians who are working here, we are equally entitled to the national cake. It will interest you to note that as employees of the branch of government that has the statutory authority and mandate to do appropriation of the national budget, we take home little or absolutely nothing. There is a widespread public perception that whoever works at the legislature earns astronomical amounts. But that is a myth. There are people here who work for less than $180. And we think enough is enough. Enough is enough. We are demanding an increment. We are demanding a standardization of our salaries and wages. The legislature passed a law in 2019. This very legislature passed a law, the Remuneration and Standardization Act. That law requires all branches of government, all ministries and agencies to have a standardized pay grade. Well, this is going to be a sustained protest. And it might lead to the courts. We might be in and this is going to be very peaceful.
Roosevelt Tule is a member of the Liberian Senate Staffers Association. Well, the curtains are falling on the 9th Pan-African Congress held from December 8 to the 12th, 2025 in Lomé, Togo. The 5 days conversations in the Togolese capital centered on the renewal of Pan-Africanism. This major gathering of sons and daughters of the continent ended with a series of key recommendations. Nadia Titi has more in the following report.
The deliberations of the 9th Pan-African Congress focused on the challenges and priorities of revitalizing Pan-Africanism, as well as Africa's role in reforming multilateral institutions. It was a historic meeting that positioned Togo as a central actor in dialogue, solidarity, and the Pan-African vision. Here is Professor Komi Selong Klasu, President of the Togolese National Assembly, representing the President of the Council.
Delegates, experts, and participants. Your invaluable contributions have been the cornerstone of this important gathering success. The close of our work is not merely an ending, it is also a new beginning. We leave Lome with a clear vision of the path that will lead to a reinvented, proud and respected Africa.
More than 20 themes were examined, bringing together numerous participants to strengthen cooperation between Africa, its diaspora, and Afro-descendants. The discussions produced several recommendations. Here is Melina Seymour, spokesperson for the Rapporteurs Commission of the 9th Pan-African Congress. We remain concerned about the lasting effect of colonial legacies, including external interference, ill-suited economic models, structural inequalities, and racial and systemic discrimination even within digital and algorithmic environments. This underscores the need to fully restore Africa's and its diaspora's rightful place within the multilateral system, in line with the spirit of the Ulwini Consensus and the Sete Declaration, which reaffirm the continent's right to equitable representation in international and decision-making bodies. These recommendations are expected to be integrated into national, regional, and diplomatic policies to help mobilize the resources needed for the continent to reinvent itself.
Our Lome correspondent Sylvie Ouedraogo's report voiced by Nadia Titi.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, West African civil society has reacted following the conclusion of the ECOWAS summit, welcoming the sub-regional organization's position, calling for a swift return to constitutional order in Guinea-Bissau. The CSOs are urging the military authorities in power to cooperate with ECOWAS in ensuring a rapid restoration of constitutional order. Our guest, Alsenin Farinta Kamara, coordinator of the NGO Turn the Page, Guinea, and a member of the collective of West African civil societies, underscores the importance of ECOWAS' position on business.
Listen, the position taken by the Conference of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS at its 68th session is fully in line with the approach of West African civil society. In the declaration we issued on December 13, we stated that any hypothesis of a military transition must be ruled out. Indeed, the Bissau-Guinean military authorities must work to ensure that the electoral process is concluded, particularly by publishing the result of the elections held on November 23. This perfectly reflects the deep and legitimate concerns and aspirations of the people of Guinea-Bissau, so that the country can experience its first peaceful, democratic alternation. We welcome this conclusion, and we will all join hands to ensure that the results are published, because the people of Guinea-Bissau must be supported. It should be recalled that the United Nations consider Guinea-Bissau a narco state. We believe that this first alternation would be a guarantee of credible and, above all, legitimacy for the authorities, allowing reforms to be undertaken so that the people can achieve development.
Why do you consider the situation in Guinea-Bissau to be a conspiracy rather than a coup?
It must be acknowledged that what happened in this country cannot be described as a coup d'etat. It is a state conspiracy allegedly orchestrated by Umaru Sissoco Embalo. As a West African civil society organization and movement, we denounce this cynical deceit by the outgoing president carried out in collusion with the armed forces to commit serious abuses.
The military authorities in Guinea-Bissau claim that the presidential election results reports are no longer available at the National Electoral Commission. Do you accept this claim?
Absolument pas. Ce sont des contre-vérités soutenues d'ailleurs.
Absolutely not. These are falsehoods supported by the public prosecutor in Bissau, who was recently appointed precisely to give legal cover to the military authorities. We recall that even if some copies of the polling station's reports were destroyed at the National Electoral Commission, authentic copies are still in other institutions, particularly the regional electoral commissions and local administrations. These bodies hold the same documents as the National Electoral Commission, and their copies can legally be used to proclaim the results as clearly stipulated by Bissau-Guinean electoral law.
Stipulé par la loi électorale bissau-guinéenne.
Senegal has been appointed to lead the ECOWAS Commission, replacing Gambian Omar Touré. What are your expectations regarding the Guinea-Bissau crisis?
Nous saluons l'élection du Sénégal au poste du président de la Commission de la CEDEAO pour la période 2000.
We welcome Senegalese election to the presidency of ECOWAS Commission for the 2026-2030 term, and we urge the Senegalese president to listen attentively to the legitimate concerns and aspirations of the people of Guinea-Bissau, who are demanding the immediate publication of the result of the November 23 votes.
Afin que le président démocratiquement élu soit investi dans ses fonctions.
Alsenin Farinta Kamara is the coordinator of the NGO Turn the Page, Guinea. Now here comes Sankule, the sportive Janko, with the latest in the sporting world. Good evening, Sankule.
Yes, good evening, Augustine Coley.
I see that you have basketball as your first angle of sports segment today.
Absolutely. So let's start off with basketball, because after 9 games, our host, Al Early Sporting Club, have been crowned champions of the 2025 Women's Basketball League Africa, lifting their first ever continental title in front of a capacity crowd at Cairo's Prince Abdullah Al Faisal Sport Hall. Well, Al Ahly finished the tournament unbeaten with a perfect 6-0 record, becoming only the second Egyptian club to win the title after Sporting Alexandria, while 3-time champions Ferroura de Maputo ended second at 5-1. We have some sport news, of course, in football. CAF has confirmed a strict ban on alcohol and laser pointers at all venues for the CAF Morocco 2025, citing safety and fair play concerns ahead of the December kick-off. Well, elsewhere, Super Eagles of Nigeria hold their first training session in Cairo tonight at 8 p.m. local time as preparations continue for their test match against Egypt, with 10 players already in camp. Elsewhere, coach Tom Sanfe of Mali has named 28-man squad, recalling midfielder Yves Bissouma ahead of Mali's Group A campaign, which opens against Zambia on 22 December in Casablanca.
Quickly, what's the significance of the ban on alcohol and laser pointers? I may have understood from a point that, especially doing penalty shootouts, these fans use these laser pointers on the players. It happened to Senegalese
Sadio Mane.
It happened to Egypt's Salah.
Of course.
And so other
It happened on so many occasions, particularly on big football matches wherein the results are very important to make a decisive, results. We've seen it, like you said, alcohol ban is very, very important because they want to make sure that fans behave when they're in the stadium.
Very well.
But the laser pointers are very important because they could Imagine you are taking a penalty and somebody just point that laser on your face, so it could trigger something else. Yeah. So it's good to know that CAF has actually banned, not allowing all these things to be entered in the stadiums.
Thank you so much, Sankule, for bringing us the sports. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. And many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Mustafa Sek for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR English, on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Curley. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, FM, Riverside County. Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia. Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you.